Hey, I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex. I travel a lot for my career as a comedian and to go to different board game conventions, so I love small box games. I love games that I can fit easily in a pocket or a backpack or something like that and take anywhere with me. And I also find that small box games are often great introductory games. They're great casual games, great games for new gamers, and I play a lot of games with people like that. So I did a video already on my top card games of the year because there just was so many great card games in 2023. So these are small box games that are not card games. There will not be any crossover between those two videos. These are games that have a little bit more in the way of components and stuff like that than just cards, but they are still small box games. So yeah, let's get into it. These are my top small box games of 2023. Number 10 is Savernake Forest. This is a great fall-themed game. I feel like there's not a lot of fall-themed games that are not Halloween spooky season games. So this is one I might come back to every fall. You are playing cards in front of you in a grid to create pathways through the forest to get different critters to resources like different food and things like that. So it's just a light little puzzly game where you are building these paths, but only one critter can move down a path at a time. So you're trying to get different stuff for different critters in the game. And it's very quick playing. This is a 30-minute or under game, but it has a nice little puzzly nature to it. And you're also drafting the cards from a market that you are going to place in your grid. So there's some tough choices there about like, oh, do I want to draft first player so I can draft earlier next round, or do I not mind going later in draft order so I can pick the right card from the card market row. So if you like little light puzzly games, this one is a great one for that. Number 9 is Diced Veggies. This is a really silly and fun game. It's like one of those games where I'm like, man, I can't believe this hasn't been done before. You know, there is a grid of dice, there is a block of dice, and you are using a big cleaver to cleave off parts of the dice, and then you're going to use those dice to fulfill recipes. You know, this is a great family weight game. It was actually designed by some kids, so this is a game you definitely can play with kids, but I've played it with a lot of adults and everybody has enjoyed it. You can only cut off dice that add up to 10 pips. So there's interesting choices of what color do you want, and there's different cards that will get you bonuses. You know, if you use only dice that have value 6, then you can play this bonus card on the recipe card that you just fulfilled, and a bunch of different colors of dice in the game. This is another one that plays in like 30 minutes or less and works for the whole family. So it's also fun to just have so many dice and they're all vibrant colors, and I don't know, it just looks really good on the table. And it's fun to have this big old cardboard, you know, meat cleaver where you're just cleaving off dice. I really like the visual aspect of Diced Veggies. Number 8 is Motor City. This is the third roll and write game in the series of roll and write games. There was first Fleet the Dice game, and then there was Three Sisters, and now there's Motor City. And they're all a little bit thinkier, a little bit more involved roll and write games. You know, a lot of roll and write games are pretty easy. Not that these games are heavyweight or anything like that. This is not Hadrian's Wall, but there is more strategy in this game than most roll and write games. You are rolling a fistful of dice and then putting them out on this board. Then everybody is going around and drafting 2 dice to then use for their own personal sheets. And, you know, as with, Three Sisters or those types of games, there's a lot of different options, right? There's a lot of different stuff you can cross off, a lot of different paths and avenues to victory, and you're not going to do the same thing every game, which makes it replayable and fun. You can try different strategies when you play this game. But the thing I like the most about it is every time you draft a dice, you get the ability of the spot you took the dice from, you get the ability of the dice face, and you get the ability of where you place the dice on your board. So it just feels like you're doing a lot. It feels like every dice gives you all of this cool combo stuff. And this is a game where you definitely can combo stuff and have epic turns, you know, where you're like, oh, I'll cross this off, which gets me this, and this gets me that, and then I can do this. And it's just very, very satisfying. That's Motor City. Number 7 is General Orders World War II. This is a war-themed game, and I don't play a lot of war games, but this one is sort of a lighter war game. It's not a big board, you know, epic 8-hour experience war game. This is a war game you can play in 40 minutes or less. It is a worker placement game where you are placing down these workers to get you advance actions, to get you paradrop actions, to get you cards that do cool special abilities. There's a lot of thinkiness and strategy in this small box. You know, I mean, this one feels maybe like a much bigger game than it actually is to me. And the whole point of the game is to either take over your opponent's base or control the most spots for points at the end of 4 rounds. And so it's just, you know, it's a 2-player only game where you are just trying to outsmart your opponent. You're trying to feint in certain directions. You're trying to eliminate their troops from different spots. You're trying to get cool special abilities. There's just a lot going on and a lot of thinkiness for a very small box worker placement war-themed game. That's General Orders World War II. Number 6 for me is Chicken. I almost could have put this in my top party games of the year, but I put it here instead. It is a very light, push your luck dice rolling game. If you're somebody that likes a game like Zombie Dice, Chicken feels in that same world. But there is a unique mechanism in this game that I haven't seen in other push your luck dice rolling games. You are essentially, you're just rolling dice and you are trying to get chickens for points and avoid foxes. If you get 3 foxes, you bust, your turn's over. So do you want to keep rolling or not? But all of the dice have egg symbols on them. And that's the unique aspect of the game, because when you roll an egg, you hatch more dice. You add more dice to your pool, which could be a good thing or could be a bad thing, right? That could potentially get you more chickens, but it also could get you more chances of foxes. And the higher you go up, there's sort of 3 types of dice, you know, the basic dice, the medium dice, and the boon or bust dice. You know, that highest level of dice has double chickens on it, but also has a lot more foxes on it. And so you're just rolling and adding more dice to your pool. And when the dice pool passes to the next player, if they want, they can chicken out and put all of the dice back that aren't the basic starter dice, but they lose a point for doing that. And it's just a very fun, quick playing dice rolling game. This is one that plays up to 8 players and plays in like 20 minutes. I really like it as a sort of party game dice rolling game. Number 5 is Inside Job. This is essentially The Crew, the game The Crew, but with a hidden traitor amongst you. Most people are doing cooperative trick taking. You are playing cards trying to accomplish objectives. Every round you flip up a new objective card and you have to do that thing in order to sort of win that round. And most of the people are trying to win a certain number of objectives by the end of the game. But the traitor is intentionally trying to sink you, is trying to make you lose objectives and get away with it. You know, they're trying to be like, oh, I don't have the right suit. I know that this said we all had to play a certain suit, but I just don't have that suit in my hand. I'm not the traitor. I just couldn't help us win this one. And if they can do that enough times, they can sabotage the game and win the game alone for themselves. This is one that I was highly anticipating, and I really, really like it. It's a much sort of faster game than I think I was expecting. You know, this is a game that plays in 20 minutes again, so it doesn't have the sort of long arc that The Crew does, where you're trying to win 50 missions over the course of a bunch of different time. This feels like a smaller package than that. But if you like hidden role games, and this is a hidden role game where you don't really have to lie that much. You know, I know a lot of people don't like hidden role games because they're like, oh, I'm terrible at lying. You're just playing cards and you can easily pass it off as I don't have the right card, you know? So it doesn't feel as like social deduction-y as some other games. It's not like, hey, I have to lie to all of my friends and I feel so guilty about it. No, if you like trick taking, if you like stuff like that, I think Inside Job is a lot of fun. Number 4 is Nemalia. This uses a mechanism that I really like, where you are placing cards down, building a grid, and to place a new card, you have to cover up a bit of a card that is already placed. You know, you're overlapping stuff, so that makes for hard choices because you're always like, oh, do I really want to lose this one thing? I really like games that do that. It adds a puzzly nature to the game where it's not hard to teach, but it makes for difficult decisions constantly while you're playing it. The other cool thing about Nemalia is there are a lot of different animals in the game, and so cards are being passed around and you are drafting cards to then add to your grid, and all of the different animals are going to score you points. You know, polar bears are going to score if they're alone, and penguins are going to score in this different way, and everything is scoring you points in different ways, and there are a ton of different objective cards in the game, and you only play with a few of them each game, so there's a lot of replayability in terms of switching up those different objective cards and what's scoring in which ways in this game. So, you know, another one that plays in 30 minutes or so, but there's like, you know, it's not just a card game because there is a board and you're tracking points on this board and you're building this whole grid, and yeah, I just really like it as a small box puzzly game. This is one that surprised me a lot. I honestly wasn't that interested in it when it came out. I was like, who cares? And then I played it with somebody at a convention. Somebody was like, you want to play this? And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, we're friends. And I was like, whoa, this is really fun. I like this. I got to get myself a copy of this. And so I've played this one a bunch with my roommates and other casual gamers. It surprised me in a great way. Number 3 is Vivarium. This is sort of the biggest small box game on this list, probably. It comes in the biggest box, and it's heavy because there are a lot of dominoes in this game. One, I love the art in this game. This is some of my favorite art in any game I've ever played. It just looks so cool and interesting and unique. You are drafting cards and getting points for different set collection. You know, these cards score in this way, and then these cards score in this way, but the way that you're drafting cards is every player has a couple of dominoes, and all of the cards are put on a board in like grid form, right? There's a certain number of rows and columns, and so when you use dominoes, you are basically putting out 2 dominoes and making a grid point. I'm putting out a 3 and a 1, and so I am drafting the card in the 3 and 1 spot. And that's how I'm getting the cards. And so every round you have to trade 1 domino in and get a new domino. And so it creates a restriction on the game, but in a fun way where you're like, oh man, I really wanted that card, but I don't have the grid points to get to that card. So let me rethink what else can I do to get me points and get me stuff that I need. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting way to do sort of drafting from this central board. And the dominoes feel really cool. You know, it's like a chunky component in your hand. So it again, feels kind of bigger than it actually is as a game. Number 2 is Couture. And, you know, if you wanted to take me to task, this is the closest to a card game on this list, right? This doesn't really have a board aspect to it, but it is the reason why I included it here and not in my card games, video, my top 10 card games, is there are these really cool little magazine tiles, and the magazine tiles are getting you points at the end of the game in different ways. It's an auction game where you are arranging cards in your hand and then bidding on cards in 3 different cities. There's Paris, Tokyo, and New York. And you have to arrange the cards in your hand all at one time before we start bidding on cards in the different cities. So you can't like put up a couple cards, see how that auction goes, and then redo your strategy. No, you have to decide all of that at the beginning. So do I want to go heavy on New York and really get the thing I needed, or am I trying to split and maybe get something everywhere? You know, I think that's just a really cool way to do an auction, to have to arrange your hand in a specific way before we even start drafting at all, before we start bidding at all. And, you know, this is another set collection game where all the different types of cards are going to get you points in different ways. You know, these are streetwear, this is sort of high fashion, and that sort of stuff are going to score you points in different ways. And those different magazines are going to sort of dictate how those points score at the end of the game. I also do like the theme. This is a high fashion theme, and the artwork is really gorgeous and looks really cool. And there haven't been a lot of small box fashion themed games, so I'm glad it exists for that reason. And then my number 1 small box game of the year is Star Wars: The Deck Building Game. This was also my top 2-player only game of the year. This is a game I really love. It is a classic deck building game, but it feels like it has some cool, unique wrinkles in it that change it up and make it feel different than something like a Star Realms or something like that. You play as either the light side of the Force or the dark side of the Force, and the cards in the market row can only be bought by one side or the other. They are dark side cards or light side cards. There is also neutral cards that can be bought by either player. But the interesting thing, one of the interesting things, is that every card that can be purchased by one side or the other can also be destroyed by the opposing side before that person can buy them and add them to their deck. You know, I'm playing as the dark side. I don't want you to get Luke Skywalker. I can invest resources to sort of destroy Luke out of the game so you can't get him in your deck, and then I'm going to get some rewards for doing that. And that aspect of destroying cards before they make it into a deck is really interesting, because I constantly have to agonize over whether I want to spend my resources to hurt you or to buy a card that helps me. You know, which path do I want to go down here? There's also a little board element to this game where there is a force, and the force is sort of going back and forth between either side, and depending on whether the force is on your side or not, you oftentimes get extra bonuses, extra special benefits from cards. You know, this card might do this amount of damage, but if the force is on my side, it does extra damage or something like that. So that's an interesting sort of push and pull aspect of the game too, trying to get the force on your side. All of these games, I think, are great. They're all great small box games that, pretty much any of these are great for all ages and great for, casual gamers or hardcore gamers alike. You know, I've played Couture with hardcore gamers. I've played Vivarium at conventions with real gamers, and they've all liked all of these games. So, yeah, I love a small box game. Those are my top 10 small box games of the year. Thank you guys for watching this series. As many of you know, I am doing a lot of these category videos, top 10 games of the year in various different categories, and I will culminate my series in my top 10 overall games of the year. So stay tuned. I've got some more videos coming. Top cooperative games, top family games, things like that. So I appreciate you. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing these videos. All of that helps me a lot. I had a bet with my brother that I could hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and it looks like I am going to lose that bet. So if you don't want me to lose to my brother, tell some friends to subscribe to my channel so I don't lose to him. So thank you again for being here. I'm Grant with Grant's Game Rex.